Hello and welcome to the First Issue Club podcast. It's a week after the 4th of July. A lot of podcasts may have taken a break, but we didn't. We were rocking it last week. We're rocking it this week. We're going to be rocking it all summer long. We're going to be rocking it every day that you want a comic book podcast about first issues, because that is what this comic book podcast does. We cover first issues. We cover them weekly. We cover number ones exclusively. We are your reading club, and we hope to help you learn and get through the muddy and sometimes murky world that is comic books. And in the club today, we have the full cast. We have me, Budget King.
Mike D.
Greg.
And Caitlin.
And Caitlin. The other thing that's interesting about this week is we are covering Firepower out on Image and Negan Lives out on Image. Both of those comic books are written by none other than Robert Kirkman. Both of them have a male lead. Both of them are from Image Comics. This is the Kirkman week. Kirkman's getting his day in the sun. You may have thought he had it with The Walking Dead, but nope. It is the First Issue Club Kirkman episode extravaganza.
The Kirkathon.
Kirkathon. Welcome to the Kirkathon. We'll get into what he did, but there's a reason why he had probably the two most talked about books last week.
Because there were no other books last week.
Well, there's that.
That's an easy one to answer.
It was a really light week. A lot of holiday weeks are.
Yeah, but also Free Comic Book Day, like, it arranged itself so that one of the books actually came out last week as a Free Comic Book Day. So one of the comic books we're covering, Firepower, is free.
Yeah.
In theory. So that's
Which actual Free Comic Book Day has not happened yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. When is Free Comic Book Day actually happening?
I honestly thought it was this month. I thought it was sometime in July.
Yeah. It was supposed to be like a month ago, and I thought every week I think, oh, is this Free Comic Book Day week?
It just says postponed into the summer.
But Robert Kirkman can do whatever the fuck he wants, and he can just send a Free Comic Book Day
Yeah,
book
at
out.
some point, all the publishers are going to have to release these because a lot of times they're promotion for upcoming books for sale.
Correct.
Like the
Venom thing.
Venom thing, exactly right. That's the one I've been looking forward to. That and the X-Men tie-in.
And then there's also...
It says July 15th through September 9th.
Great.
So they're just going to be scattered depending on when the publishers need them.
Perfect. There's some first appearance that happens that's like an arguable first appearance too in Free Comic Book Day, right?
Well, that's the Venom one.
That's the Venom one. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's supposed to be Virus or whoever.
Great.
But now Venom 26 might come out the same day, if not before.
Okay.
We've already gotten a first cameo in Venom
in
25. So if the Free Comic Book Day is indeed a cameo, it would just be second cameo, otherwise known as worthless.
Yeah.
In the comic book world.
So anyway, yes, this was a light week. This was 4th of July week. Did you guys have fireworks in your neighborhood?
Yes.
Yeah, I dosed my dog.
Mm-hmm.
We had some calming bones, and he did really good leading up to the night of the 4th, and kind of was tuning big booms out. But then when they all started coming like rapid fire, he was just like shaking and freaking out. He's a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
So less than a year old, first Independence Day for the pup. He did not enjoy it.
Terrible.
But the meds helped him sleep.
Greg and Caitlin and I are neighbors, and the area in between our house was used as a fucking war zone. It felt like a bomb was dropped there.
And it's like an echo chamber, the way like you've got like a valley there and a park in the middle of it.
And so when the booms were going over my roof, they were going over Greg and Caitlin's roof as well.
And there's like that old pool that they had, they use for like skaters.
Yeah.
And they're setting them off in that. It was absolutely madness. I feel like people don't really understand too, like you said, a war zone. Like I've seen people put up signs before saying like, hey, there are veterans in this neighborhood. It's not really that smart to do all this stuff as close as you're doing it. Like if you can take it somewhere else, that'd be great, because it is associated with a lot of PTSD. But more than that, because I don't have PTSD from being in a war, it was just super annoying. I think I'm like, number one, still adhering to like pandemic restrictions, and number two, just getting older. And I was just like, I would like to sleep It's past 11. Are we done? Are we all done?
I hate this is the biggest sign to me that I'm getting older because I'm just like, what is the fucking point of this? This is just like you're burning money. You could be spending that money on comic books. It doesn't even look that cool. Like whatever you're doing is never gonna look as cool as the city's fireworks that are happening somewhere near you that you could drive and see.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and you're probably giving to an industry that also sells like cigarettes and stuff too. I'm sure they're
Two babies.
Yes,
Specifically baby cigarettes.
they're definitely part of the people that probably sold DMT and killed bald eagles. So great job supporting.
Whoa, how were those correlated? Is that a thing?
Find your spirit animal and kill it. Drink its blood.
Oh, I think the word I was
What's
looking.
the spirit animal of an eagle? Is it like
I thi-
Steven Seagal?
I think I was looking for the word DDT.
Oh,
What's-
like the
what's-
pesticides?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Unless Joe Rogan's an eagle.
As you guys might know from last episode, my facts on the world are a little bit skewed. So I'm like,
Our world and the world beyond.
Yes.
AKA the moon.
Budget King has everything I say is a half truth or a half fact.
It should have an asterisk by it no matter
Yes.
what.
Like, can't wait for your quiz later.
Oh yeah. The quiz is good. The quiz I fact checked, so we're good on
Okay,
this.
cool.
Yeah, there's also going to be a quiz. I know you guys are fans of this podcast. Can't wait for that quiz. Okay. First, Free Comic Book Day related news. The actual first issue of Umbrella Academy is a Free Comic Book Day comic. I don't know if you guys knew that. Or
I
not.
would say, do you think that's probably the most sought after Free Comic Book Day comic?
There are
At least that I'm aware of.
It's probably the most sought after. It may not be the most valuable.
Sure.
Because there's like so many weird random shit that happens in Free Comic Book Day.
Right.
That stuff that which is fun. Like Free Comic Book Day. Give me feedback on this. It's fun to me because it's both like kids get free comics.
Yep.
Collectors get their like cool shit. It kind of like scratches both itches.
Right. Yeah. I wish that I feel like there's certain comic book shops that really lord over these things, or like don't order enough of them, and then you're looking at all the cool stuff that you were just like planning on reading, and they're like, well, pick one.
I went.
You know what I mean? Like they're kind of hard to get.
Last year, and I wish I could shout out this comic book store. I was in Oklahoma City for Free Comic Book Day,
Uh-huh.
and their rule was you could only get. It was either 12 or 14,
Oh, that's a lot.
which was fine. It was perfect. It was so nice of them.
Most shops that I feel like in Kansas City are like grab a couple, if anything, and there's like a rush in the morning, and they're like
Yeah.
all gone.
Yeah. I mean,
I went to a shop one year that paired with harvesters, and if you brought canned food, for each canned food you brought, you got to grab 2 extra comic books. So like they allotted 4, and then if you bring canned food for this harvesters event, you got to get more comic
for those who don't know, Harvesters is just like obviously it's a food bank in our area.
Yes.
That is so cool.
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah. So Umbrella Academy, which is the whole point of me saying Free Comic Book Day, is coming back with a second season. Did you guys watch the first season?
Yeah, affirmative.
Yep.
It blew me away how good it was.
It was very good.
Yeah, I was surprised by it too.
In one of the things,
If there's any comic book I've ever read and been like, would be very hard to adapt and do right, could not believe how good of a job they did.
we talked about that near 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When it was announced that they were going to do this, and you were like, "Isn't there a main character that is an ape?"
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah,
they
chimpanzee and a human ape hybrid.
Yes, exactly. One of the things about you guys probably disagree with me on this, but that is fine, is I don't actually like any of the characters, but I love the show.
I think it's totally possible to do that. I felt that way about certain shows before that I was really into.
Riverdale.
Mine was
Yeah.
True Blood.
Okay, yeah, those are good good examples. I fucking love True Blood.
Oh, they're all flawed characters.
Yeah.
But I also just like I'm not sure I cared about any of their journeys. Except for like I was like I hope they solve some I hope that they get some like substance in their life.
Violence carried you through this show, is what you're telling me.
It was the violence and just like The story was on. Give it to My Chem. The band itself, the music, I was a fan of in its right time of period when I was
When it was appropriate and
Yeah.
okay to like it.
yeah. But now that I'm older, I like where he's gone. So I would say I'm probably the biggest fan of his work. So that's that. Then we have before we get to my quiz, much anticipated quiz. Greg, you have some comic book news.
Would you guys rather have a shoe deal or a contract with your favorite comic book publisher?
Contract with my favorite publisher?
More money in shoes.
Yeah, but
I want a shoe deal.
I'd rather be doing the thing I love. Who's gonna wear my shoe?
I would.
Oh, we get
I'd wear a Budget King.
You. So I would get a shoe deal so Greg can wear my shoe.
wait. If you get a shoe deal, they make shoes that are like Budget King shoes. Is
Yes.
that what we're saying?
Yeah,
I assume that that's what that means.
Oh, wait, you get a shoe deal because you're so good at comic books. Solved it.
That wasn't the fucking question.
I don't understand.
That's all right. I'll fix it in
I'm
post,
just
bitches.
wondering what your comic book would be in that situation. You have to like make a comic book. That's a burden.
No, I got
I was kind of.
I have
thinking that too,
500
like,
comic
if
books
I
in my
don't
head
have
all
an
the time.
aptitude for doing that, and I really want to read them. I don't know if that would be giving me any.
All right, I get it. Terrible question.
Yeah.
We'll scrap it. Fuck.
No, keep that in. I like this. This is
It's
good.
also
No,
really contentious though, because I'm like, it's so easy to wear sneakers. Why wouldn't I choose sneakers?
Your first answer though was about the lucrativeness of it, not the ease of putting the thing on your foot.
Yeah, it's easier to do, and there's more money in it, so it's winning on two fronts.
But what if your
There's
contract?
no cons for
It's
him.
very hard for me to read.
If your
just so
contract
everyone
is that you
knows.
only get paid based on who buys your shoe, nobody's buying Mike D shoes.
Is that how it works?
I don't know.
Well, why would they give you
No.
a contract if there wasn't a market for it?
LeBron got like $1 billion. Like,
LeBron is
before
the
the
best
contact
NBA star in
so
there.
you're saying,
NPR
so
star.
you're saying that in this hypothetical, I get a shoe contract worth $10.
It's
How,
yeah.
and how much
In
is
which-
and the comic book contract is the same? And they both entitle me to jack shit potentially.
The comic book, the contracts look like this. You get what you sell.
So I'm
It would
self-employed.
be equally as hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even
These
worse.
So I
contract-
don't have a contract. I'm self-employed.
You're now
You're a
self-employed.
contractor.
This scenario screws us up. It bankrupts us. Thanks,
Yeah.
Greg.
Okay, what if it's like a first issue club sneaker deal?
Oh, okay. Would we rather a first issue club comic or a sneaker deal? Sneaker deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't you say
well-
that in the first place?
Cool. What's up with this quiz?
Okay. I was doing some soul searching, and I was thinking,
God.
I'm getting old. But you know who did old right? Batman. I believe the prime of Batman's crime-fighting age was around 40, of which I'm not the age of yet. So I did some deep dives in the internet, and I said, who did they cast to play Batman, and at what age was he? Would you like to answer Budget King Batman quiz?
You're not holding anything in front of you, so you've memorized all their ages.
I know two.
Okay, two.
So it's a 2-question quiz.
All right.
I feel
Okay.
like we can all spare.
You could spare the time for this thing?
Let's go
Okay.
for it.
Okay. Michael Keaton of the first Batman movie, guesses on how old he was when he played Batman.
43.
40.
I was going to say 31.
Mike D is the correct answer. Holder? He was 40 years old.
Correct answer holder.
At the time, oldest person to play Batman. I guess
How old was Adam West?
only beating Adam West. Then
Among the swaths of other people who had played
'Cause at the
Batman
time
up
it
to
was
that point.
him and Adam West.
okay. Then he has his record beat by who?
George Clooney.
Incor-
Clooney.
Incorrect.
Robert Pattinson.
Incorrect.
Himself
Kilmer.
in the sequel.
He wasn't. Yes, I guess he was, but no, he wasn't. No, but he only was in one movie.
Michael
Who?
Keaton?
right?
Michael Keaton was in
Was in
two.
two.
Count them, 2 Batman movies.
Okay, well,
Batman and then Batman
don't
Returns.
no, it doesn't. You can't count that sequel. You can't count him. It has to be another person.
Okay, so we don't have too many people left. So Ben Affleck,
And what age was he?
43.
Any other guesses?
45.
I'll go 44 then.
The correct answer is 41, and that was the Budget King Batman quiz.
Oh boy.
How about it?
Ba-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
I guess it's time to get this podcast started.
Yep.
First up, we have Firepower by Robert Kirkman and Chris Samnee. This is a #1 issue. It was a free comic book day release, as we talked about. And there's something else interesting that I will tell you about this book as well that makes it very user-friendly. But Caitlin, do you have a description about Firepower?
Yes, I do. This is one that was that I just was able to find online. Owen Johnson, he's a family man. He really only wants to spend time with his family, and he live his life. But unseen forces are at work to make that impossible. The one who wields the firepower is destined to save the world, but Owen Johnson has turned his back on that life. Danger lurks around every corner as Owen's past comes back to haunt him.
Yes, that is Firepower. The interesting thing about Firepower, if you don't know, and you may not know, last week there was a graphic novel, maybe an original trade paperback. I don't know if it was an OTP or not.
It was.
Okay, it was, yeah. Called Firepower. That is the prelude to this book. So it's like an 80-page comic book that is the whole backstory before you read this #1 free comic that you do not need to read. But it does.
You don't.
But it does substantially help the reading experience, I think, and would make it really fun to even go back and read after you've read this comic book.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff they referenced, I was like, I want to see that.
I read it. It was really fun,
Yeah.
like fabulous. And so this is kind of the like typical like samurai story or kung fu master story of, lost person who might have some like figuring out to do or genetic past of some sorts, and then it comes into this history of violence story, which is epically cool, of like, hey, this is just dad in the suburbs who can wield fire and is a master kung fu artist, and that's what you read in the Firepower #1. What do you guys think about this book?
I liked that it went so heavy. At least the free comic book day one. I didn't get to read the volume 1, but I liked that it did delve so heavy into his suburban life, because it really did make it seem like it's almost like that weird scene in Kill Bill where she's like, her daughter's coming off the bus and like they're having that fight in her home, and she's like the coach of a little league team. It was very much like that for me, where he's trying to keep some of those forces at bay because he really is focused on this stuff, but it's going to pull the story because it can't not when it starts getting into why these people are resurfacing and why they need him. So, but it was just really cool. I thought
Kill
to
Bill
get
is a
that
really
glimpse.
good reference for what this feels like. That was good.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of a more modern and interesting Iron Fist. And one thing that I think I picked up on right, that this character is like a kung fu master that hasn't been whitewashed. Is that right? He's an Asian man who's been adopted, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
From China. Yeah. Birth parents were in China.
So this is like the perfect way they should have handled Iron Fist in the Netflix series, instead of just having another white guy play a character that makes sense to be an Asian character, is have him be adopted by American parents if you want him to have an American upbringing and
Right.
share our experience. I thought that was really clever. It was almost like, let's redo that character in an independent, but do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I this comic book, it underneath it, it says teen plus, so it is a teen book. It has a little bit of like Korra or Avatar, the Nickelodeon show, like kind of feel to it, even in the artwork styling. It's like that in between anime look that's like not quite anime. But did you guys feel like as a teen book that it was ever like affecting you in that way, or did you even really notice?
I didn't really notice that it was a teen book. It didn't feel super teen oriented or like.
I think I picked up a little bit on it with the conversation with him and his daughter, though. I could see a few elements of where that might pull in a more YA audience, because she's like talking about how he was being sexist and like asking her about the boy she was talking to, and like how she gets his attention by being like, my boyfriend and I are having a baby. Like, I kind of picked up a few of those little things that might make it more YA.
I think the tension that they built between some of the characters just seemed really dark. Like to have a guy just like cold walk up to him in a supermarket and be like, "Hey man, shit's done. I'm coming for you. You're going to meet me tonight."
Yeah.
Or else. And like, I know you have a family. Like that was creepy dark shit that made this seem like, my worst nightmare as someone with a family.
the the prelude or the graphic novel does not feel like a teen book at all. It's like they're pretty brutal to him in his training. They really do a good job of like this dude is a kung fu fucking master. Like and that's awesome. They have this really cool thing that happens where like the Mr. Miyagi character, because there's no better comparison, is like an old master kung fu guy, is obsessed with Jordans and like has like do they get to that in this book too? Is there anything about Jordans in this book?
Well, he's wearing Jordans.
Yeah, he's wearing
Okay, I love
ones.
it. I love that they have an allusion to that, and it's like that he has to travel to this Mecca kind of place to like get. But he basically has like a Jordan guy to like also deliver him shoes and stuff, which is super cool. This comic book was great, and one thing that I'm going to steal this take from our friend at White Whale Comics. Alec has always said, who's a huge fan of Robert Kirkman, is that his dialogue writing is like not always the best, but his ideas are some of the best in comic books, and I think that is very true in both of the comic books that we're reading here. But specifically Firepower.
Well, I do hope that they keep a lot of the family interaction in the books. Even if you don't love that dialogue, I think the dynamic between the characters is really interesting and kind of what sets this apart. I would hate to just see him ghost his family and go on a martial arts adventure only to have the resolution being like, now I can go back to my family and be a family man. I would love for them to be incorporated into this.
Totally. I want to skip to something that really fascinated me. In the editor's notes, Kirkman basically says, I am obsessed with new, and especially like new comic books, which so resonates with just not only me, but the tone, like what we do as a podcast. We are like so in the vein of new. And he was like, something's got to change for people to read new comic books. So this is me testing it. This formula of I did a giant trade to get you into it that you don't have to read, and then I released the first.
And it was just $10.
Yeah.
It could have been $15, $20 easy.
Right. What do you guys think about that as like a new way to test out doing new number one shit?
I kind of like it just because I think sometimes when you get a first issue of a comic, it's like we've mentioned before, sometimes the formula is hard. That it's hard to get across what you want to do in one issue and hook people. And that's why a lot of comic books die on the vine after 1, 2, 3 issues. Hey, let's like wrap it up after this first run. We couldn't hook enough people.
Yeah.
I think it also says something about like the investment of the creative team. And I know not everybody has all the means at their disposal that he does, because I think he also mentioned like footing the bill for a lot of this stuff in an effort to bring people back to comic stores when they started reopening. But it adds a little heft and a little weight to like this thing is going to be big because they already have so much out there to get people into it. So I don't know if that adds something too as part of like maybe a missing element in the formula of starting a new story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I could take every number one doing this because that would be a huge investment. But when a big name like Robert Kirkman does this, it was easy to read a a regular sized graphic novel before we read this, and to me, it felt like just comic book candy. Easy read, really fun. Cared about the characters. Want to see where it goes. Now. I am more invested in this comic book than I am other comic books because I have a whole volume of comic books that I've read. I kind of feel like in the inn.
Yeah. It's probably added up to what, 4 issues?
Yeah, seems like it. Yeah, it would be an arc at this point. One thing though is like this weird thing of like he figured out how to shoot flames is kind of like that seems like that's the crux of the story because it's called firepower, and that may be the weakest part of the story for me.
The fact that he was able to hone the power of the clan that he found in the mountains. Like he's like the chosen one in this clan.
Yeah, or that it's like I don't know why. It just seems like, oh, you can shoot fire, and I'm kind of like, well, why fire? Like, it does. Is there an Earth clan and a Water clan? We don't know if there is or not. They're not, certainly not talked about.
Somebody get Nickelodeon on the phone.
So I don't know if that was. It's not like a thing that we know in the lore of the world. Like there are certain karate people that can do flame shit.
Well, I guess that's like my main issue with the trade paperback is like it didn't really flesh out anything. It seemed like really kind of hollow. It didn't explain if there are other clans out there that are battling for this, secret mountains clan. Why the clan's even up there? You get hints that there's maybe a dragon up there. That's never answered. You get a hint that the leader of the clan is now a living statue. That never gets answered. There's so many different random stories that get introduced in the trade paperback that if you don't read it and if it brings it up later in the comic book, you are kind of SOL.
Kirkman does say that it's gonna last as like a thing to go back to and check out and like reward you ongoing. But you're right. You get way more just like good story. There's no roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. And like the way so the trade was fun. I read it. It was super cool. A lot of great action scenes and some of the dialogue and the interactions between characters was really fun. But the way it ends so abruptly.
It does, because it just goes directly into this issue. The reverse is not true. You can't read that alone and not read this first issue. It doesn't stand alone in any way. So that is an interesting form. I've actually never read a trade paperback like that demands that you read the next issue to like complete it in some ways.
Yeah.
So moving forward, we think that the series might give you some background to fill in that time in between.
So.
That's what Kirkman claims.
Yeah.
Some of the stories they brought up in the trade were actually kind of cool, and I would love to see them be explored more, but it just ended so quick. I was like, oh, I guess we're just going to forget about that.
Like we didn't know about his girlfriend. He just has another wife. There's all these one of the biggest stories that Greg mentioned was like, is there a dragon in this room or not? We have no idea if there's the dragon that actually exists.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't know anything about the bad guys. So, there's a lot of shit that this has to go with.
Or his real birth parents.
Right. That has to come up in some way, too. So, I can't recommend Firepower enough as just like a fun summer read. Like, if you're looking for new shit, there's not a lot of new movies coming out. Not a lot of like new TV shows necessarily dropping. Read Firepower and have a lot of fun, I think.
Yep.
It's a brisk limeade on a hot July evening.
Yes. It's not a stiff martini that you need like a developed palate to enjoy.
And this first issue was free, so that doesn't hurt either, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know that they are going to release a version or a copy of this that you can purchase.
Weird.
It's going to have extra stuff in it, I think, but I don't know what that means necessarily. If it's just like longer editor's notes or
I
you
wonder
know,
if they'll
Chris
have like
Samnee's.
certain pages from the trade inserted in the back of just like, here's what this reference is, and here's what, or no, because that would just like not make you want to get the trade then.
So I think one of the only reasons they're doing this as a purchasable comic is that because you weren't able to pre-order or subscribe to the free comic book day version to ensure that you got a copy.
Okay.
So our shop, for example, ordered like a fucking ton of these. He had like over 100 copies of this book.
Of the free comic book day one?
Yes,
Wow.
but your shop might have only gotten 20 and they're gone.
Because
you know
our
what I mean?
our shop got them all.
Yeah, because our shop got them all. So who knows? You know, at least this way, people aren't going to be like, I couldn't get my hands on the free one, so I'm not going to buy anymore. Preventative measure.
Yeah. Anyway, great comic book. Check it out. I think give it to like anybody young that wants to read a comic book too, as well.
Or young at heart.
Yeah. Don't give it to some old fogey.
It's rated teen plus, which to me is like PG-13.
Right.
Like, would you go see a PG-13 movie? I would.
Yes. Old me not.
Most Marvel movies are PG-13.
Yes. I used to be
Only R movies?
used to be an only R movie guy.
Whoa.
That's how raw I was.
Sorry, can't see it.
If there's no suggested nudity, I don't want to see it.
Yeah. I knew my brand. But now I'm a equal opportunist for all types of ratings.
Yeah, magically when you have a child, you start watching whatever movies you can.
That's a good point. Yep. And now we have Negan Lives by Robert Kirkman, which we mentioned, and Charlie Adlard. So this is I will just tell you this. This might make me a bad comic book person. I fell off of Walking Dead. I have not read Walking Dead in a while. I kind of dipped in as it was ending last year. Didn't realize that this was very, very much a Walking Dead book. So this looks like a new #1 Image book. The artwork is super cool. Handful of cool covers. This is a Walking Dead character who is coming back, and so it's a fun book. It didn't bother me that it was a Walking Dead book, but I'm just gonna preface that. Caitlin, what is Negan Lives about?
So, spurned by a slowly rebuilding society, Negan lives a life of desperate isolation where he is like talking and cursing at flowers and visiting his bat in the grave. And then in the tradition of Here's Negan, this all new story gives readers a glimpse into what has happened to one of The Walking Dead's most popular characters since his last appearance, when he meets some people.
Did you guys know about Negan before this?
Yes.
Yeah.
One
sure.
of the most hated villains of all time.
Okay. But
Very despicable character.
But they also redeemed him, right?
I am so not versed in the Walking Dead lore. I don't know if he was redeemed or not.
Neither do
He was
I. I
actually
never
when
got
I
that far.
stopped watching because he was so brutal and immediately killed off one of the people that I watched the show
Whoa,
for.
maybe I
So
haven't
it was
watched for a
done.
long time because I was way deep into like the governor. Is that his name? Or the sheriff or the
governor, yeah.
The governor, yeah. And then the episode after that, I felt like I made it pretty far into The Walking Dead, but I guess
Yeah.
not.
I mean, I feel like you did, in all fairness. It has been going on for way too long.
I even read the damn governor's book, like a little novel.
Oh, yeah. I heard that was good.
It was good, yeah. But didn't get to Negan, so I feel like a bad fan. I'm like a half fan. I could do that during this period of time, is go back and watch.
I feel like even if... I feel like his outfit and the bat with like the wire wrapped around it
Is iconic.
Is such an iconic look.
I knew it once.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this, but in the like logo, there's a bat in the G. Did you guys see that? So
Oh my God,
yeah.
yeah, in the negative
In the-
space of the G.
Yeah.
Oh, I
That's
see. Okay.
cool. That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah. So he buries his bat. He names it after his dead wife, Lucy.
Uh-huh.
And that was and he's able to get his bat back. This comic book is brutally violent.
I loved it so much.
It is the right type of brutal violence.
Oh man, it's just like it's also just such a perfect like sneak peek jump into like a moment in his life. And was just encapsulated just right with enough context to tell you like where he's at emotionally and physically,
Yeah.
etc. And then the short tale they give you all happens in an evening. Very cool.
When I started reading this, I almost texted you guys and I was like, "Oh, this comic book's in black and white." And I was like, "Oh fuck, that's cuz it's Walking
Yeah,
Dead."
yeah.
So, one thing that I really liked about this was Kirkman talked about needing to be doing big things to like bring back the comic book industry, and he was like, "Well, I'm gonna write this epic story about and bring back one of the most like thought about characters in my series as an attempt to kind of like help that." And I killed the series last year, so let me just like do that. I don't know. What do you guys think about his efforts, like to kind of help the comic book industry?
I believe it. I think that's great. I mean, and he's talking about too that like a week where it was hard pressed to get anybody out to a comic book shop because it was basically jack shit for sale. He not only releases a new comic book over one of like the most glorified franchises ever, and like you said, a popular character. You can also get 4 to 5 issues of a series for $10 and a new first issue for free. Like that kicks ass in getting people to come to a shop.
I honestly don't know why people aren't talking about him more this week and just being like, dude did us a solid. Like he's actually trying to do stuff instead of just pushing his own fucking agenda through. He's thinking about things and how to help the industry. That should be commended.
Yeah. I bought that like Save Our Shops book that Aftershock or somebody did, and it was fine. It like there's a handful of anthology books that you buy, and it's like personal stories from comic book creators. A lot of those creators are people who I like or are people from Kansas City, so it was really cool to pick up that book. But at the same time, only mega comic book fans who have a lot of expendable cash are going to buy a $10 anthology book that's just like stories about comic book creators' shops they went to growing up.
Right.
This Negan Lives gets your ass into the comic book shop. Firepower #1 for free, a brand new Kirkman series, gets people's butts into a comic book
And this
shop.
was the shit that I was talking about and hope would happen at the beginning of COVID is people would rethink the industry and think about what they could do. I mean, we've had epic shit happen. Marvel and DC books went to digital. We had DC doing their whole own shipping, right? We like all this stuff like happened. This to me is like somebody being like, let me improve things and see what I can do rather than just react.
Yeah, the trade being like a huge part of that, I think, and the cost of it.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like a pretty lofty goal. When one person says they want to do something to change the industry completely, like more than likely blows up in their face. I hope it doesn't. I mean, Kirkman so far has been success after success after success, but I mean, it's hard to change an industry that is so set in its ways. But you know,
I
this
think
pandemic has kind of changed things already. Maybe he's using this as an opportunity to kind of reshape thinking.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I see what you're saying about like when anybody says that they're gonna try to like try to save the industry, but I kind of feel like if he says it or if McFarlane says it or somebody like that that's like been in it for a while and has done some industry changing things, and he's also kind of tossing it up like I'm just gonna try it, like this might help. I don't know. I'm at least gonna applaud it and say like thank you for trying something like interesting and also trying it in the means of just getting people to buy more. Not like it's not a cash grab. Or sorry, it's not like a play to be like give us charity money.
I get it. And both those guys, Kirkman and McFarlane, have been on the, editorial side for Image for a long time. Those guys worked on the board and like were a big part of making Image as popular as it is now. So like they're not novices to the game and redesigning the industry, but I just don't. I mean, if these are the small steps that he's taken, I mean, this could blossom into something else. I mean, how many rockets did fucking Elon Musk have to send into the air before one could land itself?
There we go.
I mean,
Yeah.
it could be a situation where he's have to throw a lot of darts at the board and
Is
see
this
what sticks.
is this the Tesla of comic book COVID crisis?
We'll see.
The only other thing that I think is comparable is I will still commend the way TKO does business and the way that they like charitably tried to help out shops when you purchase them and the way that you can order books, and
Right.
super pumped that the Jeff Lemire Sentient book got nominated. So those two things I hope are a way towards a path forward for comic books.
I think my biggest thing for the comic book industry, and I'll just keep screaming this into the void until somebody hears it.
Into
is
your
lower
microphone?
the fucking prices. Lower the prices of the comic books, even a buck. You're pricing people out of the hobby.
Man, it's crazy thinking about like just like when in the 90s when we were getting comic books, like $1.50 seemed like a lot.
It's wild. Paying
Um,
almost $6 for some books.
well, you're gonna have collectors complaining if they do something that they can feasibly do to change the price of comic books, which is, I think, release things more bound as trade, right?
Yeah. I guess Alterna tries to do the cheaper, they do newsprint and they
Yeah.
like I think their comics like $1 or something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
They're like $1.50. It's something
Yeah,
something low.
something good, but I don't know. You're right. It is tough. It is weird. Like I think that you have to have a very like salaried job to be able to purchase the type of comic books that we purchase each week. You know, like
Right.
I didn't in the last 6 or 7 years of my life. Previous to that, I did not have an extra $40 or $50 each week to just blow like I had a cigarette addiction.
Yeah. Right.
So I get you on that. They do need to be cheaper.
That's why I stopped reading comic books for a long time.
It's why a lot of people stop reading them
Yeah.
because it's not just the price to play. So it's one just buying all the new shit, but then two your ongoing shit,
Yep.
and then you're like, oh, why do I care? I got Netflix.
Yep. I was in college in 2008 when everything went to shit. Everyone started losing their jobs, and that was rough. I didn't read comics for maybe
And that might happen again.
5-7 years after that.
Yeah. And the most part is like when that happens and everybody does that when they're comic book collectors, they go back and they just wait till like January when they're like, what was the best this year? I'll pick up a couple trades and just catch up on things.
Yeah.
That's the vast majority of how people consume comic books.
Right.
And so I don't know. That's might be where the consumption pattern goes. We might be in it too much.
Yeah. Right. I
But,
tell you,
but don't you think that DC and Marvel and other comic book publishers want people to consume comic books like we do in that kind of volume?
Oh, absolutely. But I don't think they've cracked the code to figure it out. That's why I'm commending Kirkman for just trying it out.
yeah, they'd rather us do it digitally, I'm sure, too.
You think they want us to purchase digital instead of paper?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I could see
I
that.
guess that means they wouldn't be beholden to Diamond, really, right? If they did it digitally.
Well, we talked a little bit about this last week, but DC did their first, like, digital first thing with the Harley Quinn black, white, and red the other week.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that's just them dipping their toe in, but I mean, I bought it. It worked for me.
How was it, by the way?
It was great. They just did one short story. It was 99 cents. It was a follow-up to, Stefan Sepchek?
Oh yeah.
His
Harleen or
Harleen, which is a series I loved. And it just gave that, like, it tied a nice bow on that story. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was
Oh,
great.
that's cool. I didn't realize that it tied up his story.
Yeah.
Did he get to write that book as well?
Yes,
Oh, cool.
he did. So I think
Did he
this
do
is-
the art too? Because his art is insane.
he did the art.
Cool.
It wasn't as, like, intense and detailed as a lot of his art was, or is typically in, like, a printed format. But nonetheless, he's a very stylistic guy, and it was a great story, and I had a lot of fun reading it, especially for a buck. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see them trying to do more of that for DC sort of books.
You want to hear how Budget King would save the comic book industry if it went digital?
God, I'm clamoring to hear.
I've been waiting for this all episode.
Caitlin, you waiting too?
Very patiently.
Okay, thank you. Everything goes digital, and then all of the artists can only sell their personal artwork and exclusive stuff at cons.
So no more brick and mortars.
Well, okay, so that kind of sucks.
Mojo King, I think you just ruined the comic book industry.
That's what I was thinking though. Like you've got two different ways of trying to revitalize it. Marvel trying to say, you know, these kinds of events, while we don't have pandemics all the time, we may be able to reach a broader audience, lower price points if we go more digital versus brick and mortar, and then we're not as vulnerable to this happening. So that's one way to revitalize it. But Kirkman's way of like, I'm just going to release a bunch of shit that I know will get people in the stores and maybe make it a little bit lower of a price point than it would have been if we weren't in this scenario, trying to revitalize it, because he's just being smart about the stories he's choosing to put out. Totally different way, but that's definitely more of a reinvestment in the way things still are.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Unionize.
I think they could, yeah. Magic the Gathering sales are keeping comic book stores alive right now, which blows my mind a little bit. Because I'm kind of like, why are people buying paper cards when like they're you can play it digitally pretty easily now? So like the digital.
Well, I mean, there is some. Didn't you have a good time at playing in person though with people?
Oh, I love it, but I'm just saying like when we're looking at the digital versus paper battle, it seems like Magic is kind of figuring it out. Like they're making their digital product even better, and then still letting the paper do the paper thing. So I don't know.
Imagine there are too many tournaments going on right now.
There can't be. I think they're probably not doing anything that's big.
So the
So people are
collectability.
just continuing to build up.
So the ease of playing trumps collectability of the cards for you.
I have no interest in the collectability of Magic cards. That is a fucking worthless
Okay,
rat chase.
What do you mean
for
collectability?
like the
resale?
the rareness and the sale of them? Yeah,
because it's working for Magic and card playing games, but it's not working for comic books.
I don't. Yeah, it's not. Yes, if you looked at the sales right now, there's lots of articles about that. Like they're obviously going down.
Yep.
They're not what's keeping comic book stores afloat. Comic book stores are having to diversify and like look at their bottom lines and things like that, especially their back issue boxes and things like that.
Yeah.
And so there's gonna have to be something that fixes this. Or I mean, I think the hope that like it's just gonna return to the way that it was in 2019 is I wouldn't hold my breath for that.
No, I think a lot of people have found new normals that work better for them,
Yeah.
Well,
for
I'll-
better or for worse.
I'll say shops are finding a way, or some publishers even are helping, and Negan Lives is another case of this too, where they created some incentives and variants that were really low volume that had like you probably saw, if you looked these up on eBay, one with a silver logo, a green logo, and like a gold,
they always do the gold, yeah.
I think. And
Or not always. They usually try to do the golds for
they
number one new series.
You see a
yeah.
lot of Image golds, but the other ones were selling for like 200, 250, and if you send a few of those to your comic shops, let's say they got, 1 green, 2 red, and 3 gold, and they sell those on eBay, hey, you're doing them even like a huger solid.
Yeah.
By sending them things that I'm sure they didn't pay near that for.
We're not informed enough to know, but I think the variant game of comic books either keeps shops afloat or destroys them. I'm not sure which one it is.
If they're
Depends on-
getting in on the spec value, sure, it keeps them afloat.
Yeah. So, regardless, though, should people read Negan Lives if they aren't a fan of Walking Dead?
It's an interesting book about a man who's clearly lost his mind, but is on some kind of road to redemption. I mean, we're living in this world where society has crumbled, right? It's overtaken by zombies, and he's like worse than a zombie. He's like just like this nihilistic killer. But he now, like, the crux of the story is he wants to return to where his wife's corpse is at and bury it. And not only that, but he's taking along a woman who was bait to have him killed as like a companion. So it's the weirdest Milo and Otis story I've ever seen.
I loved him, and I really identified like he's who I would want to be in the apocalypse. But I feel weird saying that because I don't know his like crooked past of like has he done some irredeemable things?
Yeah. Oh, he was a shitbag to his wife.
I mean, and in the editor's notes kind of go there as well, like taking the most irreprehensible dude, and instead of killing him off like so many of the Western tropes, where if they're a bad enough villain, there's just not, they're going to be offed in the end, and that's the only way people can move on. And choosing not to do that means that he was a pretty bad dude, but that they're choosing to see it play out in a different way. I think you have to, I think for me to recommend this book, though, somebody would have to tell me that they weren't over zombies more than they would want to see this type of story play out, like a redemption.
That's a great call.
Because I don't think there's not enough primer if you have never picked up a book or watched the show for you to really understand the society that he built around it. Because there are, like, even a little bit into it, I was picking up that she was bait. And I don't think you would at all. I think you would be thrown if you weren't really into that genre to begin with.
That's a good take. This a knock on this book is that it should say Negan Lives, a Walking Dead tale.
I don't think it needs it.
Yeah, I don't think it needs Walking
He's
Dead. I think
fucking
Negan
Negan.
has actually outgrown the popularity of Walking Dead.
All right, I'm in the minority here.
And what's fucked up is this book wasn't even supposed to happen.
No, it wasn't. This was just a cover release. It was like a bait thing, like a troll thing.
Right, because Walking Dead had one of the best surprise endings. It just ended. Didn't tell anybody it was ending. It didn't tell previews it was ending. It didn't tell Diamond.
Yeah, I
was
love
ending.
that. That's crazy.
That was the coolest thing to do in my mind.
McFarlane lost his mind. He got so pissed.
It was so great. I loved it. And then I guess like in the editor's notes that Kirkman gave on the last episode, on the last issue where Negan was supposed to die, the editor's just like, I don't buy it. He can't be dead. Like, you need to rework this.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't say you can't end it like this. He gave him the whole thing of like, you can't always have a villain story in this way if you want to do that new stuff, if you want to tell a different story. And like, props to you on the way you've written this out. I think it's going to be great and successful, but I was kind of hoping to see a different ending. And then to Kirkman's credit, he was like, well, maybe I should do that. And then like rewrote it.
Okay, so I was wrong.
I think you were a half right. You don't need to atone.
I was half a comic book fan. So, Budget King, you and I combined to make one comic book fan.
Thank you.
Oh, please don't act like I'm the full comic book fan.
Yep, that does it for Image Kirkman Week. Kirkathon.
Kirkmania.
Kirk Koa.
Ooh.
Oh, I like that.
If you...
Before we sign off real quick, because we're getting ready to sign off, right?
Yeah, I had a little announcement, though.
When this is coming out this week, I had the opportunity to represent First Issue Club on another podcast, Debates on Tap. So if you guys want to hear some of that stuff, you can find them at Debates on Tap on your podcast little app thing. It was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate them having me on. I got to talk about comic books and our podcast and all kinds of fun stuff. So check it out.
That's awesome. If you listen to this podcast and you happen to own a water park, just go ahead and sell, declare bankruptcy, and invest in your local comic book store. That's my hot tip of the day.
Is that phase 2 of how Budget King saves the industry?
Yeah, I wanted to redeem from my terrible idea before.
All water parks close.
Is that true? Are they not? Well, I mean, like, they probably shouldn't be.
I can't imagine they're going to make it.
I'm a
Yeah,
typhoon
Oceans of Fun.
tycoon, and I'll give all my money to independent bookstores.
Yes. Thank you. It's a good thing I listened to a man named Budget King from a podcast.
We're very popular among water park owners. This podcast, just saying.
This has been another episode of First Issue Club. Our music is provided by Primary Color Music. We are recorded in the Moon Studios. You can find, rate, friend, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, email, and your favorite listening platforms at First Issue Club, FIRST.
Was that a yet? Is Caitlin there?
Yeah, she's here. She just doesn't have the
Yes,
mic up to her.
sorry, I'm here.
Oh, you sounded insane then.
We got you
Yeah, it's
echoing.
like echoey.
Do you turn an effect on?
No, I don't think so.
There's definitely an effect on.